Hello there everyone, this is Dave. I just wanted to give you a tour around the empire that I've created in the game X3 Terran Conflict. Before I stop playing it, as you can see, I'm in the Vidar here, Terran Vidar. That's a reward for one of the missions. I didn't quite remember which one. One of the Terran missions, I believe. Anyway, as I would show you the most important parts of what I've built up here. As you can see, I'm in Maelstrom at the moment. Maelstrom of Pirate Sector. There's very little going on in Maelstrom. That's the reason why I'm here. I simply point at the horizon and then engage Sita and wait for however long it takes for some action to happen. At this moment, I've recently acquired the headquarters, having finished the final mission. If we go to the headquarters, I put it in the unknown sector here. It's just to the right of Goyen Star. In the unknown sector, we have the headquarters here. We go to the headquarters. We can see I've fulfilled my destiny, essentially, which was to capture the Xenon Q. I've been frustrated with Xenon Qs ever since I first found out that they existed. When I first played the game, my various scouts, my freighters, in Grand Exchange, got shamelessly murdered by Xenon Qs coming down from the north sector. I finally captured the Xenon Q in the north sector. It took 40 5-star Marines to do so, and I lost about 6 of those Marines in the process, but it's finally done. Now the blueprints are now here, so I'm very happy about that. As you can see, we've got some ships being reverse engineered here. Supernova Prototype is a rare ship, only obtainable from one of the plot lines. Scorpion's not a rare ship at all, but I just thought it might be fun to reverse engineer it. Probably should have recycled it in reality, but never mind. The Agamemnon is also an unviable ship. Okay. So, let's see. I never really started building up a large empire until the hub plot, which is of course the point at which it becomes absolutely necessary to do so. And if I fly to the sector where I made most of my hub factories, then it's not going to be that. The frame rate is so bad in this sector that you may have difficulties understanding it. But anyway, I decided to build these various factories around Savage Spur. That was where I built it, mainly because there's so many asteroids in this sector. I looked up the table of which sectors have the most asteroids. There's maybe about 10 sectors have large numbers of asteroids, and Savage Spur is one of them. So let's jump there now.
Jump device charging at 10%. Entering system.
So
Savage
as
Spur.
you can see, the frame rates drop dramatically as we enter this sector. Still kind of pretty though. You have these various silhouetted rocks here. I mean, none of the major hardware is all miles out outside of the asteroid belt that's around this gate to the east. Now you can see this on the left side of the sector. You can see this beautifully aligned sort of matrix of factories that form a giant microchip complex. Now, interestingly, microchips is one of the resources or wares that sells the best in this game. The NPCs have an insatiable appetite for buying microchips, so you can't go wrong with building microchip complexes. So yeah, you can see that here. It's named the mega chip complex appropriately. We've got however many chip plants going here. This is a self-sufficient complex, otherwise known as a closed loop complex. So not only do we have we don't have to feed it with resources. Essentially, after we give it an initial seed of resources, it will produce all of the resources it needs for further production, assuming that you don't assuming that no intermediate ship happens to remove it of the necessary sort of equilibrium level to keep producing. So the important thing to remember with these closed loop complexes is that they always contain an energy cell. They always contain a solar power plant producing energy cells, and they'll always contain crystal fabs as well. In some ways, I like to think of energy cells and crystals as being sort of the yin and yang of the X universe in a way. They're the basis of they're the basis of the economy. Everything else is founded on them, and of course, anything significant also requires minerals. So you have these silicon mines. Silicon being the rarer resource in the universe, ore is much easier to find, but silicon is far more valuable. It's a very bad frame rate here. Okay, so what else do we have in this sector? I'll show you how this complex looks in a second, although it's not that impressive because the Savage Spur is quite a dark sector, so it's not very easy. Now in this sector, you'll notice it's adjacent to a Yaki sector, so you've got the Savage Spur here, got Ocracoke Storm, the Yaki sector here. Now I had to construct an alliance with the Yaki in order to do this. Something that's very difficult, in fact. In order to form the Yaki alliance, I had to do an elaborate process whereby I wasn't hiring Paranid TLs, but I was taking return ship missions, then destroying the ship, taking return ship missions from the Paranid and destroying the ship within Ocracokes, and then once I'd done that, Paranid police would spawn, and then I would then kill those police, which was quite easy at that time. The police weren't much of a challenge to kill, but because the Yaki really hate the Paranid, when you kill Paranid police in their sector, it increases your race ranking with them, which is not visible. The Yaki race rank is a secret stat. So if you look at the various race ranks I have here, there's two or perhaps more race rank stats that aren't shown. Those being Pirate and Yaki, and yeah, I was eventually able to get my Yaki stat up to a sort of neutral level. At that stage, I realised the much easier method of just wandering around the universe, getting missions from Yaki fighters, which is a much easier way to do it, and I recommend that if you have the option to do so. I only did it that way.
Complex Hub Alpha.
Because I thought that was the only way to do it. So yeah. Anyway, if you look here, you'll see the outline of this complex starting to emerge. You can just about see some of the complex tubes here. It's just floating around it a little bit. Yes, so having the Yaki alliance gives a lot of benefits in the game. You can get can get the IBL forges, incendiary bomb launcher, one of the best weapons for M7s, especially useful for Split Tiger, which I have. I used to have 2 of them, but one of them got destroyed recently. Here's my Split Tiger. Got IBLs. You can only get those easily if you buy them from the Yaki forges, because there are no player factories for those weapons. So yeah, it pays to be friends with them. Yaki's also good in that it's one of the most secure sectors because they're packed with military and fighters. So if you ever need someone to be sort of bombed off in a sort of mafia way, just take him to one of the Yaki sectors, and you'll be sorted in that regard. So, although this complex looks lovely from the map, as you can see, it doesn't look so lovely. I mean, that does look quite nice, doesn't it? Tube-wise. But no matter how pretty you make your complexes on the map, they're very rarely going to look as beautiful in the actual game. So this complex was extremely hard to build, partly because the stations are actually very far apart relative to how they should be. It was one of the first very large complexes that I built. I put the stations much too far apart. I eventually was able to get them to complex together, but it was extremely difficult. If you've ever done this before, you'll know that it can almost be a sort of combinatorial explosion problem, because the parameters of the problem change massively depending on the order in which you combine stations. You can lock yourself out of potentially working combinations. So I generally recommend, if you're building complexes, you would just sort of try to move the complex hubs towards sort of central locus, so they won't ever be too far apart, because that's really the worst thing that can happen for you to build factories that can't ever be connected. And also, you should remember to build them in the binary tree format. I can't remember who it was originally who suggested this, but a very old post that I read on the Egosoft forum suggests that the performance of the game decreases if you connect stations linearly, in a sense. You may try to imagine you have 4 factories. You connect one to another. You connect factory 1 to factory 2. That gives you a complex hub. Now, what do you do with factory 3? You can either connect factory 3 to factory 4, form another complex hub, and merge them together, or you can connect factory 3 directly to the first complex hub. So basically, you want to have the maximum number of intermediate complex hubs. So when you're looking to form complexes, try to avoid connecting to existing complex hubs if possible. For some reason, this improves the game performance that nobody. Well, there was another thread on the X3 forum about it recently, but I didn't think that anybody really understood it still. Lots of speculation, but I'm sure there's plenty of computer programmers on that forum. But I'm not sure that most of them have any particular idea about the internal implementation of the game. So yes, in this sector we have an ore complex as well, very useful for the hub plot. Unfortunately, this on its own won't really produce enough. I think I have another ore complex somewhere else. I don't really remember that well. I have a silicon complex, but this wasn't enough at all. The silicon part of the hub is extremely difficult because silicon is one of the most rare resources in the universe, and you really need to in order to get the amount that you need for the hub, which is absolutely huge. I don't remember what it was, but it's just completely unrealistic. I had to build this, which I'll show you in Aldrin, which has the largest number of silicon voids, I believe. This bad boy. No, I'm not in this sector now, but you can see that it's got a very large number of silicon voids, probably 2 or 3 times the size of the one in Savage Spur. Along with it also takes boron food resources, and is self-sustaining. I mean, this thing's ridiculous. It can make. I drained the credits out of it just the other day. It's already made 25 million credits. I mean, I'm basically at the maximum credit value now. If you look at my pilot status, maximum amount on your account in this game. In Terran Conflict is 2 billion. And, well, I'm verging on that now. It's only because I bought another. M2 to patrol the hub sector that I'm less than 2 billion. So, I mean, there's some other interesting stuff here. There's a non-self-sufficient solar power plant that also takes resources from the silicon base. So, at this stage, I kind of realised that it's slightly wasteful to make everything a closed loop complex, because everything needs to be, right? You can get much more efficient if you don't make everything a closed loop complex, because you've already got a lot of the resources floating around. To make everything self-sustaining, you're just going to end up with a lot of complexes that produce excess resources, excess products that don't have any buyers, and they're not naturally used. You may have them floating around from some other parts of the sector. For instance, a lot of in this sector I already had silicon complex, so I used it to fuel my solar power plant using a freighter of some kind. I think I have the freighter here in my ships list. Now, there's a lot to say here, but anyway, we have the spur, so solar power plant supplier. So we go to orders, trade, external commodity logistics, waypoints. Yeah, as we can see, it's automatically moving silicon wafers from Silicon Valley, as we call it, to the solar power plant. So, yes. So I have a few other things in here. So the anime farm. I mean, these are quite useless because I never utilize them anymore and they don't sell. I wouldn't be annoyed if they got murdered by pirates. These are equipment docks. They were used in an experiment where I was trying to see if I could increase throughput for ore production by transporting wares using a TL instead of individual freighters. Also, because individual freighters are at risk of getting shot. Quite often they do get shot. Unfortunately, to do this, you need a pretty elaborate structure where freighters drop cargo at the dock. Then the TL absorbs the dock and essentially waits at the dock until till it becomes full, then flies off to the Xenon hub. It's alright. Overall, if you're making the choice, I'd say it's probably easier to just get a very large fleet of freighters. I mean, imagine that you buy 30 freighters. You're not going to regret the decision. You may even buy 40 and not regret the decision. Just kit them all out with jump drive, CLS1, CLS2 software, and the shields that they need. Buying them is a pain in the arse, I will admit that. And training them is a pain in the arse as well, but training them, you don't necessarily need to, they don't always need to be trained to logistician level, which is the maximum level for a CLS2 freighter. Yeah, okay, so I think that's everything explained. I have this laser tower complex here. It's quite big. This is what I could call like nearly closed loop, as in the only resource it requires is energy cells. Now that's a very common and good pattern that I've been using. Most things I make now, I would say, have this almost closed loop approach, where they only need E cells, and then they simply build a self-sustaining SPP in the center. And then, if everything only needs E cells, you can create a sort of round-robin CLS2 freighter, which will then ferry the resources to the factories as appropriate. For some reason, it seems like the Perrin is active in this sector, even though I don't know why. Deimos, one of my favourite ships, probably my favourite ship, in fact. I mean, the Deimos is the reason why I eventually managed to cap the queue, and also it's the ship that got me through the Final Fury missions together with the PSG weapon, one of the greatest weapons as well. Let's go and check out Aldrin, a very annoying sector.
Jump device charging at 10%. 20. Entering system. Aldrin.
Okay, so we're in Aldrin now. I don't have much in here, but one of the most, quite a large achievement here is that I've literally moved every silicon asteroid in this sector, of which there was quite a lot, and created a giant silicon complex from them. Now, they're sort of arranged, if you don't have access to the sector, they're arranged in a circular pattern. You can see the remnants of the circular pattern still there. It was about twice as thick before because there was that many silicon asteroids. Using the tractor beam and M6, I moved every single silicon asteroid to this area of the sector, and then complexed them all together. It was a very, very long process, and it was how can I say, painstaking. On the other hand, this thing produces an incredible amount of silicon. I mean, relatively speaking, look at that. Produces 34,000 units of silicon. Now, the average ship can carry about 200 units of silicon tops. That's like a fully upgraded freighter, if I remember correctly. If it wasn't that, then it was like 400. But anyway, my point is that this amount of silicon is incredibly valuable, and people will come here to buy it since I've connected it to the hub. It's very far away because the sector is freaking huge. I mean, if I try to dock at my station, it's going to take a long time. So, even to get here.
Complex autopilot off.
I'm just gonna fly straight towards it. You just go and have a cup of tea. Okay, so we can start to see the roids appearing here on the heads-up display. Now, while looking at these, while moving these rocks, I got very used to this particular view. I know the level of pop-up that occurs. I know the level which you can safely get to the various asteroids, which is around 6 kilometers, if I remember correctly. One of the most useful things when moving roids. Now, I have a bit of a stunted approach to this because I played this game on a laptop, so I don't have a number pad on my keyboard. But one of the useful things you can do is you can switch to the outside view, which is actually the last of this view before it goes back to the main view. Can't see it very well in this example, but when you're actually towing something, it will give you sort of a it will give you a view of your ship sort of coming towards the camera, carrying the asteroid behind it, and this camera angle can give you a much better chance of successfully slotting in your silica mine or ore mine between the existing ones. Something that can be quite difficult otherwise. As you can see, this one wasn't tried to be constructed. This wasn't attempted to be constructed in a pretty way at all. It's just a bunch of rocks essentially. If you look at it on the map, oh, what a mess! Look at that. Basically, the mines basically have to stay where they are because the mines can't get too close. There's only a certain. It's very easy to destroy a mine by dragging it into another mine or another factory, and this even happens. It even happens not necessarily with one that already exists. For instance, sometimes when you build a factory on an asteroid, I've seen this happen in this sector. The size of the mine will cause the asteroid to enlarge and engulf another asteroid that's sitting next to it. Then when you try to move this asteroid, it will now have friction with the other asteroid that's sort of sitting inside it, and then it will be destroyed by that friction. So you always have to be on the lookout for these sort of scraping sounds. If you ever hear the scraping sound, it's when the game engine is detecting friction, and that means that you need to basically abandon your attempt and go back to your last save. So I always save before I start towing any asteroid. So you probably roughly get the idea of this. Frame rate's starting to suffer a bit, but you can see the various can see the various complex tubes. And this rather nice network here, along with these SPPs over here. Pretty tasty actually. Okay. Well, you get the idea there. Now, you can see we have Aldrin 2, Terran Unknown Sector 1, and the dreaded Terran Unknown Sector 3. Now, Terran Unknown Sector 3 is a constant source of xenon, and it's very, very annoying. If you look at the hub sector, you'll see we've got the hub here. My hub is hooked up to various gates. Savage Spur. When you say two things are linked, it doesn't really mean that they're linked. It means that the hub has inserted itself sort of virtually in between them on the map. This is actually a little bit of a difficult thing for a human to imagine. At least for me, it's a bit imagination stretching. But the hub is in between Savage Spur and Empire's Edge, so you have to travel through them to get to one another. But also from there I can also instantly get to Aldrin or Terran Unknown Sector 1. So for instance, the benefit of the hub here is that I can easily move goods. I can easily move silicon from Aldrin 2 to Savage Spur or Cathedral of Zar, or indeed to this unknown sector, which I'm not using very much at the moment. I'm using Empire's Edge quite a lot. I use it to train boarding troops because it has a military outpost. This is where I store all of my marines. It has a nice supply of Deimos and Agamemnon that regularly patrol the sector. That's rather useful because they don't put up any resistance when you're boarding them. Perhaps it's only on my game, but this is possibly even considered a glitch or an exploit. But these particular ships, in my case, won't put up. I've never lost a marine while boarding them, except once when they failed to latch onto the ship. But I've boarded tens of them without losing one marine in fighting. So that's a useful technique for when you want to train your marines to 5 stars, which you'll need to do if you want to cap a xenon queue. Okay, so we have other sectors. I was talking about the hub, that was it. So we have R1 Prime. Now this M2 for security is here because there's always pirates in Xenon, and they come from Terran Unknown Sector 1 because they come from Terran Unknown Sector 3. It's very frustrating. Unfortunately, it's just the way it is. Cathedral of Zar is also known as Your Own Sector. It's also known as A New Home. It's also known as CO's Wellspring, I believe. That's the Taladi name for it. You get this after you complete the New Home plot appropriately, or you can buy it. It's the most expensive item that is possible to buy in the game, I believe. It costs a cool
entering system Cathedral of Xar.
It costs a cool 300 million to buy this sector. Whether it's worth it, I'll leave that up to you. But I decided to use this sector as essentially a military factory, primarily for M7 and M2 class. So I've got the got one gigajoule and 2 gigajoule shields, one self-sustaining SPP in the center, as I talked about before. SIG and FAA. FAA is probably the most versatile weapon. Gauss cannon needs both ammo and forge for the weapon itself. PPC is very useful for Otas Boreas. I mean, PPC is the M2 weapon as far as I know. I mean, every M2 I use it has PPC and FAA, sorry. And also, of course, for boarding operations, I have these two split Cobras here. They're, as you can see, Cobra A and Cobra B, creatively named, and they use flail missiles and hammer missiles. The simple boarding procedure when you're boarding with these is you have your Cobra. Normally want to stock around 200 flails, 100 hammers, if you can spare the cargo, which you should be able to. You want to use between 0 to 20 hammers to bring the hull down to bring the shields down to between 20 and 0%. Then just keep firing flails at it. Keep the shields below 8%. Then you just fire your boarding pods. Remember that if you're firing 20 Marines, you need to use 6 boarding pods. Don't ask me why. Somebody probably knows, but I don't. Okay, as you can see, we've got a lot of M7s here. I went on a collecting spree for M7s because they're my favourite class of ship. Just for their destructive potential more than anything else. So I have all cappable M7s here. They've all been capped or boarded. Aegir, Agamemnon, Carrack. Cerberus is viable, but it was capped. Griffin was capped. Oh no, Griffin was a reward, sorry. Pressure was capped. There's other M7s, but they're in various other places. Now here I have an interesting economic situation. This is where I implemented the sort of round robin CLS2 regime that I talked about earlier. This was with help from Tim from the Ubisoft forums, so a lot of credit should go to him on that. Anyway, it's quite simple really. As you'd expect, just load energy cells to the max, distribute them around all stations. Every time you add a new station, you add a new destination, but the cool thing is because this is sort of only used, these production facilities are used quite rarely, as in it's not that often that I have a new M7 that I want to kit out with these weapons or this equipment. So the majority of the time the factories are full, so they don't absorb energy cells. So if I add a new station here that wants new energy cells, it's not going to wait a long time to get energy cells, because the CLS pilot will just scroll down the list, see that all of these other stations are already full of energy cells, skip them, and then deliver to my new factory that I just created. So it works well for that. When you have a situation where where you do need resources occasionally, but you're not like constantly requiring them. Like, it's kind of for luxury goods, like weapons in this sense, in a manner of speaking. Now I've got one equipment dock here because M7s, M2s can't dock at any of the other places, so they need to have this equipment dock to latch onto. I believe, or at least I did, at one stage here, I had a missile stash freighter. Here it is at the flail fab. This guy is just moving from, he's not actually active at the moment because I don't need any missiles, but he's got a CLS2 program where he's moving between the flail and the hammer fab, just picking up missiles indefinitely. So until he's completely full of missiles, he's got a huge cargo. As you can see, he's completely full. He's full of 500 500 odd flail missiles, nearly 400 hammers. Now that's enough for capping some serious capping operations. We'll say around 5 to 10 boardings you might get from that, depending on how skilled you are. So he'll just, if I start him off, he'll just start moving again, although he won't because he has to get rid of his cargo first. But yeah. Now the other place where I have major operations is Guyan Star. This is the newest one, I would say.
Jump device charging at 10%. Entering system. Guyan Star.
Yeah, not the most interesting sector visually. It's somewhat the same as the various other ones. I have an M2 here on patrol because basically this used to be a pirate sector. You can see on the sector map it is nominally a pirate sector. During one of the missions, the one where you have to cap the prototype Terran ships, I was forced by circumstance to completely level this pirate sector and essentially capture it. Because I had to do it to do the mission, I thought I may as well try and hold it, given that I've probably killed about 30 different several pirate capital ships and 30 odd fighters. I may as well try to hold it. So I've got my Boreas here patrolling around, and he's doing fairly well. He's not doing too badly. Every now and then a pirate stumbles in here, but he doesn't normally last long. Now
Complex Hub Alpha.
So we have the we have the standard by now closed loop E-cell complex in the center. Actually, this is the hub that I have targeted as on the targeting screen here, but this one I'm pointing at now is the actual complex proper. I'll just do a quick flight pass. Ooh! So as you can see, it's the usual spider web. Now here I decided to do a sort of more ad hoc weapons factory when I tried to when I was trying to use some less heavy equipment than the M7s I had been flying. I thought I might try to fly M3s and M6s for a while, so I decided to kit them out with PRGs, which are a very useful turret weapon, especially for M3 to M6 class. Wasp missiles, very versatile sort of mini flail type weapon, which is very useful for taking out M5s, M4s. This Hurricane, which I haven't actually used very much. I had an idea to use it, but I didn't end up. I haven't used it very much yet, but I'm hoping to use it. This 200 megajoule shield for factory is for M6s. If I ever should use them, they're probably the best class of player ship overall. That's why I'm flying the Vidar now. This Vidar kitted out with mammals and the NPCs in the turrets. Yeah, so we've got that guy inside. It's fairly secured.
Jump device charging at 10%.
This is the unknown sector to the right of Going Star.
Entering system.
Doesn't have a name.
Unknown sector.
I've got another M2 Boreas here, scouting around, protecting this sector because pirates always turn up here. Always. They're even more common here than they are in Guyan Star. They come
Video
from
enhancement goggles.
They come from
not
Maelstrom.
installed.
I don't know why they come from Maelstrom. I may consider annexing Maelstrom itself at some point, but anyway, We've got the headquarters.
Headquarters.
I actually haven't taken a look at it yet, so if you'll pardon a second, I might go and take a look at the headquarters itself. As you can see, Paranid and Taladi come through here. I suppose that they're coming to the various weapons factories which are selling to these NPC races. I love these sectors because of the green nebula. It's very relaxing to me. It's very kind of mysterious. Okay, so here's the headquarters. This is what it looks like. Quite nice. Seems like it's got a sort of solar panels on the base. I mean, I'm not sure which side is up. Maybe if I roll a bit, you might want to claim that this side is up. I suppose that's one of the joys of X3 in a way. Never truly know which side is up. Although I've got to say that this looks like the correct angle to me. But it's pretty anyway. Yeah, you can see the headquarters. If you go in the info, these are blueprints I have. The Q, which I'm most proud of. A few other rare ones: Fenrir, Mjolnir, perhaps Solano. I don't remember. These are only capable. These freighters are here because I'm at the moment I'm trying to move ships in. I have a lot of ships that I don't have any use for, you know, that maybe I'd fly them once, but I just kind of want to get them out of my ships list, but I don't want to. I want to be able to reconstruct them if possible, so I'm thinking I'll reverse engineer them. But they also often have a lot of shitty cargo on board that I don't really care about, so I try to move them into these various freighters. Like, one of the fun things that you can do in the game is that this only applies when money is no object, but once you if you want to get rid of a resource, you don't just want to scrap it, then you can transfer it into a freighter without any equipment, and then just sell the freighter. You'll get half of the value of the ware, which is better than nothing sometimes. I suppose it's more of an OCD thing, because if money's no object, why do you even care about just ejecting the ware? But sometimes it's just feels wrong. But yeah, these guys are waiting to be reverse engineered. I already talked about those. I'm not really sure how the headquarters uses credits yet. I'm under the impression from reading the wiki that it actually doesn't use credits at all. That you have to supply it with goods directly. For instance, if no. See, I went into this dialogue once, and I definitely saw that I was able to move wares to inside the headquarters, but apparently not. Oh well, that's for another time, I suppose. A few notes: CO Sprite, don't build here. You'll be attacked by pirates constantly. It's really annoying. I'm not there as far as I know. Nor am I here really. The Shrike, one of my favourite M7s. I love it. Love the design. Love the speed. It's like an Assassin's M7. Beautiful thing. It's worth building a satellite complex because they're coming useful throughout the game. Been there. Useless ore mine. Beautiful sector, Heaven's Assertion. One of the most beautiful sectors. Home of Light, you can buy jump drives here, except for that, don't know why. Omicron Lyrie, my very first home sector, so I have a bit of an attachment to this. And I've still got my very first factory, the Cattle Ranch, here. Absolutely useless, doesn't make any money at all, but never mind. Or Cloud, don't build here because you can't supply it with E-cells. Nearly everywhere else in the universe can get supplied by E-cells without using freighters if you set your E-cell buy price high enough. Not here, you can set your buy price as high as you want. Nobody will ever sell you any E-cells unless you provide your own freighters. So just bear that in mind, but you will be able to sell these shields pretty easily without any issue at all. Crystals, this was used for the hub plot, and it took absolutely ages. This crystal complex has a maximum capacity of this amount. I'd recommend that you make another one in another sector and unload them both at once. Oops. Nothing to say about this place except that it has a military outpost. Always good to know where all the military outposts are. Queen's Retribution, not that interesting. Queen's Harbour though is a great sector. This is the #1 place where I end up buying jump drives from Atreus HQ, and there's 3 solar power plants in the same sector. Basically, this is like the hub of all activity in the eastern side of the map. Senator's Badlands, wonderful sector. My space fuel complex here sells a lot. As you'll know if you Google for a second, then space fuel and space weed are among the biggest sellers in the economy. You can't really go wrong with them as long as you build outside of space with that has police. Various unknown sectors. This is the Xenon sector. And as you can see, there's always Xenon here. There's an M1 here. Like, I'm pretty sure my M2 is gonna go and try to kill him now, but he may not get there in time. Sometimes they're just passing through. But anyway, this is a unknown sector below Cathedral Czar where I tried to build a weed facility to sell to this pirate base, but it didn't work that well for some reason that I couldn't figure out. I don't really know why, but my weed facility sells quite okay anyway. I mean, yeah, it's always out of weed, so that's good. That's, I've already seen that. Venus is notable for having a Phantom missile fabrication facility, which is the only place that you can get missiles that can be used by the Claymore, which I'm going to buy now.
Phantom missile.
And it's always good to stockpile those missiles because otherwise your Claymore is going to be useless. So, admittedly, it's not the most useful thing ever, but it can be useful. These are all my Marines. I've got 33. I used to have around 42 before I tried to board the Xenon Q. Then a lot of them got killed. That's all the ships that I own. Not much else. One of the most important things you can do here is to turn off additional ship information. Look what happens if I turn it on just for a second. Oh, I basically can't read my display. So turn that off once you have more than about 10 ships. And don't group the ships by sector unless you're insane. And you want to sort them by the name. And when you do that, you can use coding systems in the name to sort them how you want. So in general, the ships I care about the most are the most valuable ships, right? They're M2s, M7s, possibly M6s. And I also care about sometimes my player ships, which I abbreviate with PS. And my TRs, which are expensive. Random freighters I don't care about at all. So, with my freighters, I put a ZZ at the start, which pushes them to the bottom. Anything new that I got that's yet to be sort of filed or renamed, I keep the your prefix. Sometimes I'll just use a random prefix to disambiguate them. And spare freighters I call spare freighters. They're quite useful to have around sometimes. Yeah, well, I think that pretty much covers it. So, thank you very much for your attention. I think this is probably... Oh, shit.
Duke's freight transporter.
Don't worry, it's only Duke. So, this is how my count is now. I've been flying for 88 or whatever those things are. I don't know what that amounts to in human days. I can tell you it amounts to around 650 hours in Steam, which is much less than some other people have. Still, it's quite shocking to me.
Target is now in firing range.
Yes. Now, salvage insurance. Once money is no object, which will take a long time. Just buy as much of it as you can because it makes things much easier. Look at this, I even got an achievement for boarding the Xenon Q.
Target left firing range.
And yeah, it took me 30 boardings before I was able to do that. Definitely the most difficult thing that I've done in the game.
Target is now in firing range.
Yes. Well, I don't really try to kill Duke very much these days.
Target
so
left firing range.
Doesn't really matter that much. Yeah, well, that's pretty much it. So yeah, I'll see you later, guys, and thanks very much.